I just turned the camera off and started to walk away, and this rod just ripped off the ground. Doesn't actually feel that big. It's decent, but I don't know what it is. Oh, it's fighting. Sucker catfish. Woo! And here I thought I was not going to be able to catch a fish today because the conditions are just terrible. The river's flooded, super windy. I literally was about to go put my rods in my car and grab a minnow net and try and catch some minnows or something while I left this worm soaking, and he just came out and hit it. So I'll get this guy back in the river here. Small little channel cat, but put up a nice unexpected fight this morning. Let's see if we can catch another one.
Didn't she catch you? You said that one. You're trying to make that.
I might have one. I don't know. Either that or I got stiff.
I wrote stiff.
No, I think it's a fish. Here, grab the net, buddy. Big one. Grab the big net. Right down in the water there. Oh, get out of the water there. It was a lot smaller than I thought it was. We got one! Hey, I think that's a bullhead though.
Bullhead?
Yeah, it's a different kind of catfish.
A bull. That's a bullhead?
I think so.
Well, he looks scary. Ugh.
I can't tell. Maybe that's a channel cat. I thought maybe it looked like a bullhead at first, but I think it's just a little channel cat. Ow! Ow! It's biting me. Alright, so here I am with the channel cat. I think it's a channel cat. It might be a bullhead. A little hard to tell, but I think it's a channel cat. Anyway, it's tiny, and I'm going to throw it back in the river now.
That's where you get little stinking fish.
Alright, so I'm rigging up my worm rig, and I just wanted to show you guys a quick little tip. I'm rigging up this, I just busted it in half, but I'm rigging up this 7-foot catfish rod, and with this rod I'm using a 1.5 ounce sinker because it's a big, stiff, heavy rod, and with this heavy sinker I can really launch my bait really far out. The ones that I'm using on my other rod, which I've got sitting out here, which is a Steelhead rod, it's like a 9-foot 6-inch medium light. So I'm using little sinkers like this, 1/2 ounce, up to like 3/4 of an ounce. 1 ounce is too much for that rod. I can cast 1 ounce with my Catfish rod, my 7-foot medium action, but I like the 1.5 just a little better. 2 is too much. So if you're trying to figure out like what size sinker to use with your rod, hopefully that helps give you an idea. If I was using like a 6/6 rod with this kind of stuff, I would probably use a 1 ounce, and probably like an egg as opposed to like the teardrop style. That's just my preferences of what seems to work for me with the rods that I have. Okay, so here's that 7-foot medium action rod. It's medium heavy, not medium heavy, so it's real stiff, and that's why I'm using the 1.5 ounce. So I've got the sinker, which we talked about. A bead is just to protect the knot from being destroyed. You can technically run it without the bead, but everybody runs it with the bead. Every once in a while, if I don't have a bead or I'm feeling lazy or rushed, I'll do it without the bead, especially if I know I'm in a spot where I'm going to break off after a few casts anyways. Alright, so step one, you got to thread the line through the sinker, and then you got to put the bead on. So sinker first, then bead, and then barrel swivel. I've got a braided main line, so I'm using a polymer knot. I recommend using a polymer knot anyway, but you can use whatever knot you want. But if you're using braid and you're doing anything other than a polymer knot, that's probably not ideal. So this is what I got. I'm going to trim this off, and then I'm going to tie a leader line onto here. And the point of that is so that when a fish grabs it and pulls, the line can pull through, giving them the confidence to eat it and get it in their mouth before you see that rod tip start to move. A lot of times what happens when your sinker is like right on your main line is they grab it and they feel that resistance right away, and they know that they've grabbed something they don't want to grab, and they spit it right out. So you're just gonna get your bait played with all day doing that, and that's why it's worth the extra time that it takes to rig up this rig. I used to not rig these kinds of rigs out of laziness or excitement to hurry up and get my bait in the water, but it really is worth the time and effort to rig these this way, as opposed to just putting split shot on your line and tossing it out, which is what I always used to do, and it never really worked for me. So this is what I'm using for my leader line most of the time. 12-pound fluorocarbon. It's not true fluorocarbon, it's not 100%, it's a copolymer. I like the 12-pound because then if I hook into a pike or something, its teeth aren't gonna shred the line instantly, or if I get on a snag, I don't break off as often, as easily, because obviously all this rigging takes time and keeps you from having a bait in the water. So it's worth using the little heavier line. And I'm fishing post-rain, super heavy, dark water right now. So I could be using a braided leader and it wouldn't even probably matter right now. But I like this line also because of the type of line it is, the copolymer. It doesn't fray like traditional fluorocarbon. It's more abrasion resistant, and it ties better knots, because a lot of times when you're tying the fluorocarbon and doing polymer knots, it can shred your line, and then you have a weak point, and that's where the line's going to break when you run into a snag or a big fish. So being that this is more abrasion resistant, I like it. When I do need to use a lighter leader, I've got some 8-pound fluorocarbon, 100% fluorocarbon, and I don't care for this brand, but it's cheap and it works fine for leaders. You know, leaders are going to wear out, you're going to replace them over time. I've caught foul hooked king salmon with this same 8-pound leader, so and landed them on a 6.6 rod. So it's up to the task. It's just not my favorite. It's not as durable, breaks easier. I just picked these up. I don't know what they are, but it's an octopus circle hook. It's what I usually use for worms. I've been having good success lately with a beak hook, which is a live bait hook for like salmon fishing, I guess. Something I happened to pick up and use that's worked really well for worms. But generally the octopus circle or the circle hook when fishing live bait is my preference. That way you don't have to rush to set the hook. You can leave your rod setting there, watch your rod tip go off. You can even give it a second sometimes, and then when you tighten the line, it's gonna pull to the corner of the fish's mouth and hook them in the corner. And I've seen it over and over and over. It almost always ends up that way. The only time I find it not in the corner of the mouth of the fish is when winter pike fishing and the bite's really light, because they like to grab it and just hold it and not actually swallow it. So they'll do that and they'll be like, oh, I got it, it's mine, and then they'll swim away and you'll see your rod tip or your bobber start to go crazy. But the bait's not really in the fish's mouth hardly at all, so like you get like a tip of the nose hook usually, and that kind of, or like, you know, 3/4 of the way on the side. But otherwise you almost always get that corner of the mouth hook set. I've got my 2 rods set up, now it's a waiting game. What I'm doing right now is anytime I go like 5 to 10 minutes without a bite, I'm actually reeling it in about 3 to 5 feet and then just let it set again, because with the water being high, there's a good chance that the fish could be closer in than they normally are, as the depths have changed by probably a solid 4 feet in this spot, because normally I can hop down over here and get on the bank of the river, and this place where I'm standing is about chest high. So chest high on me, it's that much deeper than normal right now. So the fish could be in closer, they could be in the same spot, they could be out further, they could just be not biting, but I'm not just gonna leave it sitting in one spot for like an hour, because sure, eventually a fish might swim into that area and find it, but I'm able to cover more ground and figure out where the fish are at by doing it this way. And with 2 rods, I can move, you know, one now and then the other one 5 minutes from now, and just kind of keep them staggered. Give the fish a chance to find that scent and, you know, hone in on it, or move it into a spot where they're more likely to find it because there's a better current, or it's closer to where they're at, or maybe I just happen to put it right in front of one. So that's kind of my logic behind that technique. So after I moved both of my rods closer in, I actually got a hit on both rods. I wasn't rolling for one. I didn't hook either of the fish. I think they're just little fish nibbling at the end of the worm. I re-rigged my worm so that the bulk of it will end up with the hook in the mouth this time. Fish on! Fine. I got what I came for. If you're worm fishing, it's a good idea to have some of these, because sometimes it gets way down in there. Check this guy out. Not too bad. Second channel cat of the year. I deemed that the other one I caught the other night was a bullhead. So there it is. Jam cat on the night crawler. Pretty fish. Take a picture of him and let him go. Hi. Goodbye, Mr. Catfish. Rock bass? Really light colored rock bass. Yeah, little rock bass. Kinda lacks that spot, but I think it's just really lightly colored in this case. It's definitely a rock bass fin though, you see that? Exciting. It was a good day after all. I caught 2 fish. We'll get the epic release shot of the not so epic rock bass. And he's off. Oh, now he's off. Back to where you came.